Good evening. The Ranter is back to go into yet another rambling diatribe of the news of the day. And I wasn't really expecting to do one of these. I was going to lay low for a while, let things calm down. Pretty much anything that was Trump-oriented, knowing that I'm an avid Trump critic. I simply been on my social media simply going, I'm sure that's fine. Whatever it is, his cabinet picks that are coming out of Fox contributors or Fox News and whatever backgrounds they have that we don't give a shit about, and Trump also is trying to actively bypass the whole confirmation process for some of them. I just been saying, I'm sure that's fine. I'm sure that's fine. Because we're not even in the Trump administration just yet. That starts in January 20th with the hearkening of the deportation of 20 million men, women, and children from this country. But be that as it may, I was going to wait, just calmly, just watch the clown show go by without jumping back into the void. But with the news of President Biden's pardon of his son Hunter Biden, and the subsequent backlash and what I've been seeing on the social medias that I haunt on, and everyone's dramatic reaction to it, I have to harken back to that great scene from the less than great Godfather 3. Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. So, I'm going to try to untangle this web of shit that people have been clutching their fucking pearls over upon how this was such a crime of the century that Joe Biden pardoned his son. Now, usually at this time, I would come out with the caveats of saying whether I agree with him pardoning his son or not over his crimes. I'm not going to do that because fuck that. I may explain my opinion on that later, but at this point, who gives a shit, pretty much. But let me go through a bit of history because some people who are whining upon this pardon seem to have the memories of fucking flies. So I'm going to go through just a small list of controversial political pardons going back a while. And since the presidential pardon process has been in this country under our United States government since, George fucking Washington, pretty much every president has done such pardons. And some pardons were not always seen as, righteous or fixing a miscarriage of justice, shall we say. So I'm going to read to you an article from, where is this from? From U.S. News. Alright? So, let us begin. Hunter Biden, Confederates and relatives, the most controversial presidential pardons. It's not just Hunter Biden. Presidents as far back as George Washington has faced criticisms for their presidential pardons. Even a, quote, get-out-of-jail-free card, quote, has its costs. President Joe Biden's pardon of his son Hunter Biden on Sunday, after more than a year of promising not to intervene, is just the latest instance of presidential pardons generating controversy. Here's a look at some of the most controversial presidential pardons in U.S. history. Former Confederates. President Andrew Johnson granted a full pardon and amnesty to all former Confederates on Christmas Day in 1868. The pardon extended to all those who directly or indirectly participated in the late insurrection or rebellion, and intended to unite the nation under the federal government after the Civil War. Jimmy Hoffa. In 1971, President Richard Nixon pardoned Jimmy Hoffa, the notorious head of the Teamsters Union, while he was less than 5 years into a 13-year prison sentence for jury tampering and pension fund fraud. Following the pardon, Hoffa mysteriously disappeared, became a source became a source of intrigue and conspiracies for decades. Richard Nixon. Weeks after President Nixon resigned from the office following the Watergate scandal, President Gerald Ford pardoned him for all federal crimes Nixon committed or may have committed or taken part in while he was president. The move is said to be the first preemptive pardon since Nixon was never tried for his crimes. Ford approval ratings plummeted in months following the pardon, and the episode may have contributed to Ford losing his re-election race in 1980. Which actually is a misnomer because by 1980 it was Jimmy Carter, not Ford, so U.S. News has to have a little issue with that because that's wrong. Vietnam War draft resistors. President Jimmy Carter pardoned approximately 200,000 draft resistors to the Vietnam War on his first day in office in 1977. Those charged had violated the Military Selective Service Act between August 1964 to March 1973 by failing to register for the draft or leave the country. The Iran-Contra officials. President George H.W. Bush, who served as vice president under Ronald Reagan, pardoned the convictions of 6 fellow Reagan administration officials for their role in the Iran-Contra affair. This includes former Defense Secretary Caspar W. Weinberg, who was indicted for lying to Congress about selling arms to Iran. Bush pardoned Weinberg before his trial, and others either faced probation or were yet to be sentenced. Mark Rich. On the last day in office, President Bill Clinton pardoned Mark Rich, a billionaire who had been indicted for evading $48 million of taxes and making illegal deals with Iran. Following his indictment, Rich fled the United States and remained a fugitive until his death in 2013. Rich's pardon was considered controversial in part because his ex-wife was found to have made large donations to Democratic causes. A Justice Department investigation into the incident ended in 2005 without charges. Roger Clinton. President Clinton also pardoned his half-brother Roger Clinton in 2001. The younger Clinton, who was sentenced to 2 years in prison for possessing cocaine and drug trafficking in 1985, had served a year in prison at the time of his pardon. Chelsea Manning. In 2017, President Barack Obama commuted all but 4 months of the remaining prison term of Chelsea Manning, a former U.S. Army intelligence analyst who had been convicted of leaking military information to WikiLeaks. Obama's pardon came 7 years into Manning's 35-year prison sentence. Charles Kushner. President Donald Trump pardoned Charles Kushner, the father of Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, in 2020 for convictions of tax fraud, witness tampering, and making false statements to Federal Election Commission. Talking about Hunter, right? Kushner serves 14 months of his 2-year sentence before the pardon. Trump has since appointed Kushner to serve as the U.S. ambassador to France. We're not done. Steve Bannon. President Trump pardoned Steve Bannon, his former White House chief strategist, in the last hour of his first term while Bannon awaited trial on federal charges related to defrauding donors in a fundraising campaign aimed at building Trump's southern border wall. Yeah, he skimmed the money off of donors for the cause of the bullshit border wall. Okay. Bannon later served 4 months in prison for defying a congressional subpoena over his role in the January 6, 2021 insurrection. Paul Manafort. Another recipient of a pardon from Trump is Paul Manafort, the former Trump campaign chairman who had been convicted of tax and bank fraud, among other crimes, in 2018. Manafort faced 7-year prison sentence starting in 2019, of which he served nearly 2 years. Are we done with Trump? Oh no, because we have Roger Stone! At the end of President Trump's first term, he spared his longtime associate Roger Stone by commuting his 40-month prison sentence and later extended him a full pardon. Stone had been convicted of making false statements to Congress, obstruction, and witness tampering in the wake of the special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into Russian interference in Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. And now, we're down to Hunter Biden. President Joe Biden pardoned his son Hunter Biden on Sunday on federal convictions of gun and tax evasion charges. The full and unconditional pardon of the younger Biden not only marked the first time a president had pardoned his son, but is also one of the most sweeping pardons in recent history. So, out of that list, there is the pardon for Hunter Biden. Now, to go through the history of the presidential pardons, we did a number of them within the last, within the end of the 20th and 21st century. There's still more. Going back to the summary of the various amounts of pardons that was done over our history with our presidents, including George Washington, who pardoned 16, John Adams 20, Thomas Jefferson 119, James Madison 196, James Monroe 419, John Quincy Adams 183, etc., etc. I mean, I could go down the list of all the presidents who are making pardons. And for those who are whining upon Joe Biden's pardon, he's doing this for his son, but what about the other people? Other people in the world who suffers under the convictions or the sentencings of lesser charges or things that, unlike his son. Joe Biden pardoned 26 people, excluding pardoning 6,500 pardons for simple possession of marijuana. Yeah, he pardoned people just smoking a joint. Oh, that bastard, right? But you can go down the list of the various people that had been pardoned and their various crimes. Only 2 presidents went through a presidency without pardoning anyone. William Henry Harrison and James A. Garfield, both of which died shortly after taking office. So, yeah. I'll post on my social medias a list of the various people and what their charges were that was pardoned by these presidents of the United States. But we are dealing with the pardon of Hunter Biden. Yeah. This is not the crime of the century. And the reasoning that Joe Biden gave for his pardoning of his son is actually pretty reasonable, given what the incoming administration is going to look like, given that there are more loyalists in the cabinet than there are going to be people that are actually qualified for their positions, given Kash Patel is being picked for the FBI, so that's another loyalist that will go after the people that Trump wants to go after, and eagerly and not really hiding the fact of doing so. So, again, cry me a river about fucking lawfare, okay? His action to save his son is to spare him, or try to spare him, from what would happen under a Trump administration, being one of the collateral damage of a vengeful Trump in retribution mode. Now, we have arguments over the motivations of all the law activity involving Donald Trump. If it's all politically motivated, that it doesn't really matter, this is just all political, political hoax and this and that, and even if he was doing these crimes, it doesn't matter, because if it wasn't Donald Trump, then no one would be paying attention. That would be all politically motivated, and you know what? Maybe that's so. But so is Hunter Biden. We did not hear about Hunter Biden and whatever evil machinations people think he was doing until Trump brought it up. When he brought it up with his perfect call to Zelensky, that in quid pro quo to get those defensive capable missiles to defend Ukraine from Russia on time, that Zelensky should investigate Hunter Biden and find out what was going on with him in Ukraine for the missiles. Oh, incidentally, that thing that got him impeached, he was still late on delivering those defensive missiles to Ukraine. So I guess he wasn't getting investigated fast enough. And it was going around the ethers is that it didn't matter to actually investigate Hunter Biden, just say that he's investigating Hunter Biden, because that would be enough. Because Donald Trump, if he's anything else in this world, he is a master. He is a savant of perception, making perception a reality. That is how we can go from the facts and the figures and the numbers of how our economy really is. That, such stale, dry material that gets your eyes glazing over, but he can get you feeling like everything is out of control, that feeling that everything is going down the wrong path. He will encourage your fears, and he did. Encourage your apprehension for this government. Encourage your mistrust of the government and or the media, so that you will follow podcasters in basements, of all things, wearing, maybe a podcaster, I don't know, wearing a nice little watch cap, and listen to them as if they are speaking to you of the gospel, of the truth of the matter. Yeah, he gets you to feel. And in the human condition, feeling trumps facts. So, Joe Biden, on his way out, sees how the Trump setting his cabinet up is setting up with just loyalists. When it's less about qualifications and more about doing whatever the boss wants him to do. I mean, the Matt Gaetz thing for AG, that was fun. That lasted, 2-3 days until they finally cornered him on the ethics committee. What their finding was is though he had to not only get him out of consideration, he initially resigned out of Congress, so no more Matt Gaetz in Congress, so there's something. But Joe Biden is seeing all this happening. After spending at least the past year or more, dedicated to not pardon his son, pardons his son. Going back on his word. He's a hypocrite. He's a liar. I've been hearing all day today someone who claims that Biden did the right thing, but then still has to put the caveat in is that, well, he's still a hypocrite and a liar, and it's very immoral, blah, 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 blah. You know what? Fuck you. Fuck you. Because if it's the right thing to do, leave it like that. Because if you add that extra shit that goes the other way, then you're not saying it's the right thing to do. And no matter how way you're going to argue around it, because you want to argue because you're bored and you want the attention, if it's the right thing to do, then it's the right thing to do. It's funny. As a Trump critic with Trump derangement syndrome, those few times that Trump actually did something right, stumbled into a right call, I acknowledged it. And I didn't throw out a caveat about it, because in the instance of him being right, I gave it to him. I praised him for being right. If you think it's right that Joe Biden pardoned his son, but you can't just bring yourself to not then shit on him after you finish the period of that little sentence, then you're worse than me on Trump. Could it be very well that in Trump derangement syndrome we all believed that all the accusations and charges on Trump are valid and righteous, and put the blinders on of it being politically motivated? Sure. Let's be adults and throw that out there as a possibility of this, that all of this that Trump had to suffer through was all just political ploys and a political hit job, and none of that really mattered. Not the documents, that didn't matter. Him trying to strong arm Georgia to find him 11,000 votes, that didn't matter. His action or inaction on January 6th, none of that mattered, because all that is political bullshit. I mean, hell, Trump coming out in his reaction is that, that is a miscarriage of justice that Joe Biden pardoned his son and then leaving all the hostages from January 6th still in prison. Fuck you. And another fuck you for that is because Trump himself said he would pardon Hunter Biden. So it's a miscarriage of justice if Joe Biden does it. But it wouldn't be if you, Biden, because that would be a noble, magnanimous thing for you to do. Maybe you're pouting because Joe Biden beat you to it. Now, I'm still in the wait and see mode. I'm not going to give you the gloom and doom of what I think of what this cabinet of sycophants are going to be, and what Trump is going to do with this cabinet of sycophants and the departments therein. I'm not going to go into that because we're not in the Trump administration. We're still Joe Biden's administration. You got a month. You got a month and 17 days. So, let's not... I'm still trying to keep it level-headed here. Trying to maintain here. Just sort of like tally up what I'm going to see and just go, yeah, okay, I guess that's fine. I guess that's fine. I'll wait. But I am not going to cry or whine or give issue to Joe Biden pardoning his son. I'll give you my opinion right now, which I was holding off until then. Should Joe Biden have pardoned him? Perceptively, if it wasn't before today, I would say no. No. He should hold on to his word and not pardon him. And let's see where the chips fall where they may at sentencing. Because sentencing might not have been too bad. Except if the sentencing was done after Donald Trump assumes office, after his hand-picked DOJ is in control, and having Hunter Biden be on the mercy of these loyalists who will do anything to appease Donald Trump, what would be the sentence that Hunter Biden gets? Will it be fair? Will it be in accordance to him violating the law involving tax evasion and the gun charge? Would you trust this DOJ under Trump coming, given how he's been picking people for his cabinet, how he's picking people for his departments, how they're there for loyalty, not for qualifications? Can you trust that Hunter Biden's sentence would be fair to the crimes that he committed? As a regular American citizen who was not related to Joe Biden, not related to Hunter Biden, it's a toss-up. It's a coin flip whether these people will actually do the job, have an appropriate sentence, and that appropriate sentence be meted out to Hunter Biden. But if I was in the shoes of President Joe Biden, knowing what at the time President Trump had done to turn Joe Biden's son into a political lodestone, to have his sycophants in the media, social and nightly news media on Fox News or anywhere else, to go to town on Hunter Biden and his laptop, how his congressional minions like Marjorie Taylor Greene would blow up pictures of him naked from his laptop, or him getting sexually served by a hooker, because that was something that needed to be seen in a congressional floor. If I was Joe Biden, I would not trust a Department of Justice under the strict commands of a sycophant of Donald Trump with the sentencing of my son. So maybe it's right or maybe it's wrong. I completely understand why he pardoned his son. And I'm not going to say boo about it. Through the list of the people over the histories that got pardoned within the last, from the end of the 20th century, 21st century, how many names on there was Donald Trump? How many of them were pardoned that were serving his interests, and they got in trouble for serving his interests, so he pardoned them? For those who are claiming how Hunter Biden's crimes were so terrible that he should suffer the consequences for it, that other people out there that are under the same boat are not suffering the consequences that Hunter Biden were, how many people are out there suffering the same consequences as Paul Manafort or Steve Bannon or Christopher Kirchner? How many crimes have gone by from people who committed the same crimes as they did, but they didn't get pardoned, and none of you all who are complaining or whining about it then? Oh, and if you were actually concerning yourself about the gun charge, because that might make Hunter Biden a dangerous person, let me remind you of the time frame of when he got that gun. If there was anyone that was going to get hurt or killed from that gun, at that time where his head was going to be himself. You fucking sick freaks. So, yeah. You all want to go to town on Joe Biden going back on his word, calling him a hypocrite, calling him a liar for pardoning his son, of all things, then claim he did the right thing. Fuck you. It is a laugh that any of you want to tag Joe Biden for lying when the person you prefer categorically lies over and over and over. Proven lies. Your virtual signaling is so impressive, how you do that with it's not so much of the hubris or the irony in doing so. But what do you expect? Again, this is the political games we're in. This is our political landscape. Now, we are going to go back into the era of Trump. And I have said this before. I am going to say it again. As someone who's an avid critic of Trump, I want to be wrong. Prove me wrong. I want Donald Trump and what he does for this country to prove me wrong. Because the last time around, he didn't prove me wrong. he proved me right. Throughout the span of Biden's presidency, what Trump was doing proved me right. Proved me wrong. Give us a better life as Americans. And not just certain Americans or the fanatical, sycophantic Americans who will believe anything Trump says. No, physical, tangible proof of things getting better. Because him saying anything don't mean shit because he is in fact a liar. And for the not ready for prime time cabinet with no qualifications under God of being responsible for those positions, like Linda McMahon being tapped for what, Secretary of Education? As an avid wrestling fan, I do know, a fan's eye view of the McMahons and Linda McMahon. And when you dig a little deeper into that, her failed bid at the Senate, her already being in the Trump administration the first time around, her being part of Secretary of Education is funny because she's never been an educator. In fact, in point of fact, in order to try to justify her being in this position, she claimed that at one time she taught people French. She lied. She never taught French. She never taught anything. But, maybe she's just there as the placeholder just to keep the seat warm as they try to destroy the Department of Education. Which is one of those things that they want to do. I know many teachers that will not be very pleased with that. But who are they, huh? They're probably just teaching that woke nonsense like the actual causes of the Civil War or something, or what happened to the wonderful years of 100 years after the Civil War for a certain segment of our population. Because they'd be too woke. Shh. No. So I'm going to be mellow. I'm going to wait and see. And if things improve, after we all suffer under the grip of tariffs, if things improve, very good. Very good. I'll have to see the actual, results of actual tangible proof of things getting better, not from the words of Baghdad Bob, or Donald Trump, or any of his sycophants around him, or any news media that is friendly to him, but physically, tangibly on the ground. And not coming from him like opening the mints and, trying to spend our way to a utopia and to make people pretend that nothing really is wrong. He's making things better without proving it, without the actual work involved in it. But I'll wait. Things improve, that we can prove without a shadow of a doubt, then praise goes to Donald Trump and whatever concepts of plans that he has that actually will work. But it doesn't. If it doesn't, if things get worse for people, if things get worse for certain segments of people that have been demonized for the past 2 years, and under his campaign, things get worse. Domestically, foreign issues, then I may be a broken record for some people and go, so how is Kamala Harris going to make this work worse? But we'll see. Again, we will wait and see. And one last thing on the pardon, and pretty much we can go back and forth of the intricate, complex issues involving the pardon, if it's morally right, if it's immoral, for this or that. If you want to really get into the nuance and have these arguments back and forth, fine. I will leave you with a really simple, something real simple. If a convicted felon can be president of the United States, then our current president can go back on his word and pardon his son. The ranter rants, because the urge to rant is always rising. Business might be picking up after January 20th.